thinking in a horizontal process, thinking in multiple directions, a radiance of thought. When it comes to trying to well-define thinking and discussing well-defined thinking processes, it's important not to get boggled up in this fixed mindset or this fixed way of thinking, and to move actually away from these concepts of mindset and into something more fluid and which can accommodate for the dynamical aspects of being, in which we are constantly engaged in a more of a creative, dynamic process of creating meaning and creating what we think about things. And what tends to be most conducive to meaningful, thoughtful processes is something that is more cognitively flexible and engages what's called cognitive flexibility, and which allows us to make these connectives between different categories of association, and which we can draw from memory and link to various different priors that we've established in regards to our knowledge, and during the currents of our direct perception, being able to form what can constitute knowledge within learning processes, optimal learning processes, because we never really cease to stop learning. We're always engaging in learning, and that's because things are transient and impermanent, and they're not fixed, and so they're not perfectly structured. And what's perfect is what's temporaneous, insofar as it captures the most true aspect of metaphysics, the external metaphysics around us. And you'll often hear people think about the nature of existence more in terms of reality, and reality is definitely meaningful and important, but it's operating within an objective metaphysics. And what metaphysics is, it pertains to the nature of our existence that is not bound to, say, our subjective experience, but the objective. When I hit the ground, there's a clang, there's material, there's matter, and it's not just that it's made out of physical structures. I interpret what are these subjective-objective relationships that pertain directly to direct perception, and which constitute a sense of what matters and what's matterful, and that requires subjective-objective relationships to constitute that in a dynamic learning process in which we come to constitute knowledge. And this requires us to engage thinking about things creatively, and how we might not in one prior instance come to perceive that and to think about that, but in the next have access to a set of meanings that allow us to better sculpt a meaning interpretation that is more true and accurate and approximating what we directly perceive as we move more flexibly through our lives. And this is how we ultimately can engage in more meaningful living and living a meaningful life. And frankly, I'm not too interested in anybody who's living meaninglessly, and all the videos and contents I create are only for individuals who sought to live meaningfully and to live a meaningful life through necessitating it and thinking. And it requires us to think. And if you're not interested in thinking, well, you can leave and you don't have to watch these videos. And what you say is meaningless to me, as far as I'm concerned. And if you are interested in living a meaningful life, then maybe you have something meaningful to say, or maybe you don't yet quite. But that's okay, because as long as you're engaged in a thinking process, you are engaging in a creating meaning process. And that's because you're learning, and you're learning dynamically to create new meanings as you're engaging in that creative thinking that's creating meaning all the time in a creation process of what you meant.